We're joined in the studio now by Kolyohin. He's a Russian and Israeli journalist. Thanks for joining us in the studio here, Nick.
Sure.
Look, Vladimir Putin in his announcement, he compared this current move that he's making now to things the United States had done, stationing their weapons in Europe. So I think he tried to, in other words, I don't know if he de-escalate this move at the same time that he's making it, but what do you make of, I think it's the first time since the 90s that Russia's positioned nuclear weapons outside of their borders. So a significant move, does it represent something, a change tactically? How do you see what the Russians are doing?
I think it's a signal to the world and to the West that we should maybe stop the war now. Enough of that. Wow. And we are really serious here, guys. And the nukes already will be deployed in Belarus. And the next move could be that we will use them. And the United States should think twice before they continue their support of Ukraine. And they need to think that there are many people in this world that want to have a peace in this world, and they don't want maybe one day to found themselves after a nuclear destruction,
There's a lot of pundits arguing this, that no matter what the stakes, de-escalate with Russia, that, standing up, some people arguing this, that standing up for Ukraine not worth a nuclear holocaust around the world. So I hate to use that term, but the nuclear, fallout hitting the planet here. Our Western allies have been talking tough and ramping up their weaponry, their advanced support for Ukraine. And we're likely to see that stall right now, given this shift of tactical nuclear weapons?
I think that both sides there now don't know exactly how to end the war, because it's easy to start, it's really difficult to finish a war, and they really don't know what to do. And maybe this threat of nuclear war will be a way for them maybe to reach an agreement, because they can say back to their people, see, we could win, but better let's save our planet for the little change that things will be out of control.
Look, in the context of the Russia-China diplomacy week that we just came out of here, it appears maybe Russia's a little more emboldened now to do moves like this, having backing from China. Where's the U.S. likely to respond? Seeing that alliance growing, the nuclear weapons moving into Belarus, what do we expect from the U.S.?
I think for U.S. it's a big lose what just happened here, because for many decades they succeeded in their policy to divide Russia and China after they were allies after the Second World War, and now they're suddenly again best friends ever. And for the West it's a big sign, a warning that they are serious. Why? Because they have nothing to lose. Both countries are now almost completely isolated. Now Russia, China will be the next. So what they left to do if not to fight together?
Certainly a frightening prospect for the West. Look, it increasingly looks like this will be a drawn-out conflict in Ukraine. Some starting to use the term, war of attrition. That could go on for another year or two. At this point, what's your analysis? Can either side really maintain a war of attrition for a long period of time? What's it look like?
I think that the stockpiles of Russia, they're going back to the USSR era, and maybe they are endless because they were waiting for this war with the West, with NATO, with the United States, maybe for 70 years, maybe for more. And the West doesn't know how much weaponry Russia actually has. But what they are saying, at least Russia, that they can make, and they're producing much more weapons than the West. Yeah. So in the end, I don't know if the weapons will go away. There's too much of them, and better that we just will end it now.
Look, on Belarus and the role that they may play here, Lukashenko in particular, I think when Biden had come to the region and went to Poland, Lukashenko had extended an offer, hey, come to Minsk, I'll broker talks with Vladimir Putin. What kind of role does Lukashenko play? Is he, for better or worse, just a puppet of Putin, or is there some independence for him in this European theater right now?
I think that politics, you have a strong leader there, and you have all his kind of puppets. So of course Lukashenko is a kind of puppet of Putin, but he has some independence. He's the last dictator of Europe, as he says, in the last 30 years from the middle of 90s. I think he's in power, so certainly he has some thoughts and own moves. Yeah. And
for now, I think the Russians said these nuclear weapons going to Belarus will still be under the control of Russian forces. They're not giving nuclear weapons to Belarus. In other words, this is still all Vladimir Putin calling the shots?
Yeah, that's the same United States. They have nuclear weapons in at least 6 countries in Europe and in many countries around the world. And this is completely the other side of the planet. And Russia just moves it a bit from its border. You know, it's like US will move it to Canada, its weapons, and not to Europe as it does.
Certainly, it's a provocative set of situation with the weapons deployed the way they are. Look, Nick Kolyohin, thanks for being with us on
Thank you.
something we're all paying attention to. But we